Ladies and gentlemen, this morning I invite you to take a moment, just a single deep breath, and allow your spirit to awaken. Today is not just another day, it is a canvas waiting for God's presence to paint upon it. Together we will explore how to align our hearts, calm our minds, and step into the divine rhythm of life. There is a profound simplicity in the act of breathing, yet within this simplicity lies a universe of possibility, a universe that speaks to the very core of who we are. When we inhale deeply, when we allow the breath to fill not just our lungs but our very being, we create a moment of sacred pause. A moment in which the world slows down and we remember that we are alive, that we are present, and that we are capable of receiving the gentle whispers of divine guidance. In a world that rushes forward with relentless urgency, the conscious act of breathing becomes a rebellion against distraction, a refusal to be swept away by the currents of chaos. It is a declaration, soft yet unwavering, that we belong to this moment, that we are aware, that we are willing to meet ourselves where we are and invite the divine into the space we occupy. When you breathe with intention, you allow yourself to become aware of the rhythm that pulses through your body, the rhythm that mirrors the heartbeat of the universe itself. Each inhalation brings with it life. Each exhalation releases tension, fear, and worry. And in this sacred exchange, there is a subtle transformation that begins to occur. The breath becomes a bridge between the physical and the spiritual, between what is seen and what is felt, between the noise of the world and the quiet voice of your soul. Consider for a moment how often we breathe without thought, how frequently we rush from one task to another without ever acknowledging the miracle of air entering our bodies, nourishing our cells, awakening our senses. There is power in stopping, even for a heartbeat, to draw in a breath so deliberate, so full, that it reminds you that you are here, that you are present, and that you are worthy of the sacred life that flows through you. Conscious breathing is more than a physical act. It is a spiritual practice, a gateway to mindfulness and divine connection. When you focus on the inhale, feel the energy rising within you, lifting your chest, expanding your ribcage, awakening every fiber of your being. When you focus on the exhale, sense the release, the letting go, the gentle surrender that clears the mind and makes space for clarity. This simple rhythm is a teacher, and if we are willing to listen, it will show us how to cultivate patience, how to hold still in the eye of a storm, how to create a sanctuary within ourselves where peace resides and where God's presence is not only invited but welcomed with open arms. There is a sacred intelligence in the breath, an innate wisdom that knows exactly when to expand, when to contract, when to gather, and when to release. And when we honor this intelligence, we honor ourselves and we honor the Creator who has breathed life into us. The act of conscious breathing is not merely about survival, it is about awakening. It is about reclaiming the power that lies dormant within us, about standing in our full awareness and saying yes to the life that is unfolding, about refusing to be pulled into the currents of fear, regret, or distraction. Each time we draw a deep breath, we anchor ourselves in the present, and in this present, we discover the vastness of God's love, the endless possibility of grace, and the quiet power that has always been with us, but that we often fail to notice. When you breathe with intention, you invite the divine to accompany every thought, to infuse every action with purpose. and to remind you that even in moments of uncertainty, even when the world seems heavy with worry, you are supported, you are held, and you are guided. There is a rhythm to this life, a pulse that mirrors the rhythm of your own breath, and when you attune to it, when you consciously align your inhale and exhale with the cadence of the universe, you begin to feel a harmony that is otherwise elusive. In this harmony, the noise fades, the anxieties quiet, and the mind, which so often jumps from one worry to another, begins to settle into a serene awareness that is restorative, transformative, and deeply healing. And it is in this quiet awareness, this mindful breathing, that we cultivate a space for prayer without words, for reflection without distraction, for gratitude that rises from the soul rather than the mind. The breath becomes a mantra, a silent hymn, a song of presence that resonates through the body, reminding us that we are alive, that we are connected, that we are never alone. Each conscious breath is a gift, a divine offering, a chance to recalibrate, to recenter, and to reawaken to the sacredness that permeates every moment. And when we take these breaths, when we breathe with intention, we are reminded of our resilience, of our capacity to stand in the face of difficulty, to remain steadfast when the storms of life threaten to overwhelm us. The breath teaches us patience, for it cannot be hurried. It teaches us acceptance, for it flows as it will. It teaches us presence, for it demands that we notice, that we participate, and that we honor the miracle of this very moment. And as we continue to breathe fully, consciously, we begin to notice subtle shifts within ourselves. The tightness in our shoulders softens, the heaviness in our chest lifts, the chaos in our mind begins to settle into clarity. There is a sense of grounding, of centering, of being held in a quiet sanctuary that exists not outside of us but within us, a sanctuary that we carry wherever we go, a sanctuary that is always accessible through the simple, sacred act of mindful breathing. And it is here, in this sacred space, that we encounter the divine, that we feel the presence of God whispering to us, guiding us, reminding us of our worth, our purpose, and our infinite capacity to rise above circumstance, to move through challenge with grace, and to embrace the beauty of life with an open heart. Breathing consciously is not a mere technique, it is a practice of love, a practice of awareness, a practice of life itself. It is a declaration that we will no longer allow the distractions, the fears, the pressures of the world to pull us away from what truly matters. It is a return to ourselves, to the center of our being, to the sacred rhythm that sustains us. And in doing so, we cultivate a presence that is grounded, resilient, and luminous. Each breath is a step into clarity, a step into peace, a step into the quiet awareness that God is near, that God is listening, that God is inviting us into a deeper communion with the life we are living and the spirit we embody. And as we continue this practice, moment by moment, breath by breath, we begin to notice a profound transformation, a subtle awakening that permeates not only our bodies, but our minds, our hearts, and our spirits. The breath, so simple, so ordinary, becomes extraordinary, becomes sacred, becomes the thread that weaves together our awareness, our presence, and our connection to the divine, reminding us always that we are alive, that we are here, and that we are held in a grace that is unwavering. There is a sacred beauty in the ability to reset, to let go of what has been, to unburden the mind and spirit from the weight of yesterday, and to step into the morning with a renewed sense of possibility and grace. Life, in all its complexity, often presses upon us with expectations, with memories, with regrets, and with worries that seem to cling stubbornly, refusing to be released. And yet there is a profound freedom in choosing deliberately and consciously to lay down those burdens, to take a moment and say, this is behind me. This is not who I am today. Today I rise anew. To reset is not an act of forgetting. It is an act of courage, an act of faith, an act of love for oneself, and for the life that God continues to breathe into us. Each day brings with it a new canvas, unmarked and untouched, a chance to paint with colors of hope, of gratitude, of clarity, and of purpose. And to embrace this new day fully, one must release the past, not in denial, not in avoidance, but in the deep understanding that the past is a teacher, witness, and a guide, but it is not a prison. We carry so many invisible weights, the what-ifs, the should-haves, the moments of regret that replay endlessly in our minds. They pull at our energy, cloud our perception, and dim the radiance of our spirit. And yet, in the stillness of a quiet morning, when the world has not yet begun to clamor for our attention, there is an opportunity to step into a sacred practice of release, of unburdening, and of resetting. To reset is to recognize that yesterday's disappointments, yesterday's failures, and even yesterday's successes no longer define the present moment. They are chapters, yes, but they are not the entirety of our story. The mind, when weighed down by yesterday, becomes a battlefield of conflicting thoughts, a place where clarity is lost, and where the heart struggles to find its rhythm. And so, to reset is to gently, tenderly, and intentionally clear that battlefield, to sweep away the debris of old worries, of old hurts, and of old expectations, and to create space for peace, for clarity, and for divine guidance. There is a rhythm to this act of resetting, a rhythm that mirrors the natural flow of life itself. We inhale deeply, filling our lungs with air, with life, with the promise of a new beginning. And as we exhale, we release what no longer serves us, what no longer nourishes us, what no longer aligns with the truth of who we are and who we are becoming. And in this rhythm, in this sacred exchange between release and renewal, we find ourselves anchored in the present, grounded in the reality. That we are not bound by yesterday, that we are free to walk forward with courage, with faith, and with clarity. Resetting the mind and spirit requires honesty. It requires a willingness to look at the thoughts that occupy our minds, to acknowledge the emotions that linger in our hearts, and to recognize the patterns that have kept us tethered to the past. It is a gentle confrontation, a tender reckoning, a compassionate acknowledgement that we are human, that we are imperfect, and that we are capable of growth, of change, and of renewal. And in this honesty, there is liberation. There is a sense of rising above the chains of regret, of lifting the weight of resentment, of stepping into the light of possibility with a heart that is open and a spirit that is willing to embrace the unfolding day. The process of resetting is not merely about letting go of negative experiences. It is about embracing the fullness of life with clarity and purpose. It is about recognizing that each morning is a sacred invitation, a call to awaken, to breathe, and to walk with intention, to live with presence, and to carry within us the awareness that God's grace is ever present, ever guiding, and ever renewing. When we choose to release the burdens of yesterday, we create a fertile ground within ourselves for joy, for peace, and for divine inspiration. We make space for the gentle whispers of guidance, for the subtle nudges of intuition, for the quiet confirmations that we are on the path we are meant to walk. And in this space, we find strength. Not the strength that comes from struggle, but the strength that comes from alignment, from clarity, and from a deep, unwavering connection to the divine source of life itself. There are moments when the past seems insistent, when memories rise unbidden, when regrets cling to the edges of our consciousness. And in those moments, resetting becomes both a practice and a discipline. It is a deliberate turning away from what no longer serves, a conscious reorientation toward what nourishes, uplifts, and empowers. To reset is to honor the sacredness of the present, to acknowledge that while we cannot change what has been, we can change how we carry it, how we respond to it, and how we allow it to shape or not shape our today. It is a practice of grace, of patience, and of profound self-compassion. Each morning, as the light breaks through the darkness, there is a gentle invitation to rise anew, to step into the day with open eyes, open heart, and a spirit unburdened by the weight of what has come before. This invitation asks nothing of us except that we be willing to let go, to trust, and to receive the gift of renewal that is always available. Resetting the mind and spirit is also an act of faith, for it requires us to trust in the unseen, to trust in the flow of life, and to trust that God's plan is unfolding even when we cannot yet see it. It is a trust that whispers, even in moments of uncertainty, that all is well, that we are supported, that the burdens we release are transformed into wisdom, and that the space we create within ourselves is a sanctuary for divine guidance, creativity, and clarity. As we release, we notice the subtle lightness that enters our being, a lightness that speaks not of forgetting, but of remembering who we truly are. Beyond the mistakes, beyond the regrets, beyond the burdens, we remember that we are resilient, that we are capable, that we are more than the sum of our yesterday, and that we are infinitely deserving of peace, joy, and divine presence. The act of resetting is a ritual, a sacred practice that can transform the way we move through life. It is a reminder that we do not have to carry yesterday's weight into today, that we do not have to allow the echoes of past disappointments to color the brightness of the present, and that we are always capable of choosing renewal, clarity, and alignment with God's presence. And as we continue this practice moment by moment, breath by breath, thought by thought, we begin to notice a shift within ourselves. The mind, once cluttered, begins to clear. The heart, once heavy, begins to lift. And the spirit, once burdened, begins to shine. There is a profound beauty in this transformation, a quiet joy in the recognition that each day offers a new opportunity to reset, to release, to embrace, and to walk forward with intention, purpose, and grace. Resetting is also an act of courage, for it asks us to confront what is uncomfortable, to face the patterns that no longer serve us, and to step into a space of vulnerability, trust, and openness. It asks us to acknowledge the power of choice, the power to decide how we respond to the past, and the power to claim the present moment as a sacred space of renewal. In this courage, there is liberation. In this liberation, there is peace. In this peace, there is the quiet, unwavering presence of God, holding us, guiding us, and inviting us to rise beyond the weight of what has been into the fullness of what is possible today. The mind and spirit, when burdened, can feel like a storm, chaotic and relentless, yet resetting is the act of finding the calm at the center of that storm. It is the recognition that the storm, no matter how powerful, does not define us, and that within us exists a stillness, a sanctuary, a source of clarity that is untouched by the turbulence around us. And so we breathe, we reflect, we release, and we reset, cultivating within ourselves a space where the mind is clear, the heart is light, and the spirit is attuned to the guidance, love, and grace that flows ceaselessly from the divine. To reset is to return home to oneself, to the sacred core of our being, to the awareness that life is a gift, that each moment is precious, and that the burdens of yesterday, though once heavy, are now gentle teachers, guiding us toward wisdom, compassion, and renewed purpose. And in this practice, we discover that the act of resetting is not a one-time event, but a continuous journey, a sacred rhythm of release and renewal that carries us through the days, grounding us, uplifting us, and connecting us ever more deeply to the divine presence that walks with us through every season of life. There is a profound, almost ineffable power in the conscious act of inviting God's presence into every aspect of our lives, in allowing the sacred to weave itself into the fabric of our thoughts, words, and actions. To invite God is to acknowledge that life is not merely a sequence of events to be endured or managed, but a sacred journey, a tapestry of moments infused with divine intention and infinite possibility. Each thought we entertain, each word we speak, and each action we take becomes a channel through which the divine can flow, transforming the ordinary into the extraordinary, the mundane into the miraculous, and the routine into a revelation of grace. Consider for a moment the mind, the fertile landscape where ideas, dreams, and fears coexist. When we invite God's presence into our thoughts, we are choosing to allow clarity, wisdom, and discernment to take root. We are acknowledging that we are not alone in our decision-making, that a higher consciousness walks with us, illuminates the path, and whispers guidance that transcends the limits of our own understanding. Thoughts left unchecked can drift into doubt, fear, and confusion, clouding the mind and obscuring the beauty of life's possibilities. But when the mind is consecrated by the conscious awareness of God's presence, thoughts are refined, directed, and elevated. They become instruments of insight, reflections of divine order, and seeds of creativity that blossom into actions aligned with purpose and integrity. And it is in this alignment that we discover the profound truth that our inner life shapes our outer reality. Words, too, carry immense weight. They have the power to heal, to harm, to inspire, and to diminish. When God's presence guides our words, each syllable is imbued with intention, with compassion, and with love. We speak not merely to communicate, but to uplift, to encourage, to bear witness to the goodness that exists both within us and in the world around us. Words become prayers in motion, channels of divine energy that touch the hearts of those who hear them, that plant seeds of hope, that offer solace to the weary, and that ignite the courage to rise, to transform, and to embrace life fully. And in speaking with the awareness of God's presence, we discover that our voice becomes an instrument of harmony, a reflection of our deepest values, and a manifestation of the sacred that lives within us. Actions, of course, are the tangible expressions of our inner state. They are the living proof of what we believe, the visible reflection of the intentions we cultivate, and the footprints we leave on the world. When our actions are guided by the divine, they are no longer impulsive, reactive, or driven solely by self-interest. They are deliberate, compassionate, and purposeful. Every gesture, every choice, every movement becomes infused with meaning, aligning our personal journey with the greater flow of life, with the unfolding plan of God, and with the impact we are called to have in the lives of others. Inviting God into our actions transforms ordinary tasks into acts of devotion, mundane routines into rituals of grace, and even challenges into opportunities for growth, resilience, and profound learning. There is a rhythm, a cadence to this conscious invitation that begins in the quiet moments of reflection, in the pauses between one thought and the next, in the spaces where stillness allows for divine guidance to be perceived and acknowledged. In the morning, as the light begins to break, there is a sacred opportunity to invite God into the day, to commit our minds, our words, and our actions to a higher purpose, to consecrate our efforts as expressions of love, kindness, and service. And throughout the day, this invitation can be renewed, moment by moment, breath by breath, choice by choice. Life, with all its unpredictability, can sometimes sweep us into currents of haste, worry, or distraction. But the conscious act of inviting God's presence serves as an anchor, a grounding point, a reminder that even in the midst of chaos, we are guided, protected, and held by a force greater than ourselves. To live in this way is to cultivate mindfulness, not in the superficial sense, but in the profound spiritual sense where every thought is observed, every word is intentional, and every action is examined for alignment with divine purpose. There is a humility in this practice, a recognition that we are instruments rather than the source, that our highest potential is realized when we are conduits for the sacred, and that our greatest impact arises when our lives are harmonized with God's presence. And yet, this invitation is not passive. It requires active participation, a conscious choice, and a willingness to surrender the illusion of control. It asks that we pause before reacting, reflect before speaking, and consider before acting. It calls for courage, for honesty, and for an openness to being guided in ways that may challenge our ego, our preferences, and our assumptions. And in this openness, we discover a profound freedom, a freedom that comes from trusting that we are held, that our intentions are aligned, and that our lives can become vessels for grace, healing, and inspiration. Inviting God's presence is also an act of love, for it extends beyond self-interest. It reaches into the lives of others, touching them with compassion, understanding, and integrity. When our thoughts, words, and actions are guided by the divine, we become instruments of peace, beacons of hope, and witnesses to the transformative power of grace in everyday life. Others may not always recognize the source of our calm, our clarity, or our kindness, but the effects ripple outward, creating a quiet, pervasive influence that lifts spirits, nurtures hearts, and strengthens the bonds of community and connection. This invitation is a lifelong practice, one that requires patience, persistence, and reflection. It is not a momentary gesture, but a continuous orientation, a daily commitment to seek alignment with what is true, good, and sacred. Each day presents opportunities to renew this commitment, to recenter, and to realign, ensuring that the life we live is not merely reactive or habitual, but intentional, inspired, and infused with divine guidance. And as we invite God's presence, we begin to notice subtle yet profound shifts within ourselves. Our reactions become measured, our decisions become clearer, our interactions become more compassionate, and our perspective expands to see the interconnectedness of all things. The burdens that once weighed heavily upon us begin to lift, replaced by a sense of purpose, clarity, and divine support. There is a joy that arises from living in this state of awareness, a quiet satisfaction in knowing that our life is no longer dictated solely by circumstance, fear, or ego, but guided by a presence that is unwavering, wise, and all-encompassing. The act of inviting God's presence also brings a profound sense of humility, for it reminds us that while we have the ability to act, we are not the ultimate source. It teaches us patience, for divine timing may differ from our own. It instills courage, for guidance may lead us along paths that are unfamiliar or challenging. And it nurtures gratitude, for we recognize that every thought illuminated, every word inspired, and every action aligned is a gift, a blessing, and a manifestation of grace. As we deepen this practice, we begin to understand that it is not only about the extraordinary moments of life, but also the ordinary ones. For God's presence can transform the seemingly mundane into vessels of sacredness. The way we greet another person, the words we speak in passing, the choices we make in moments of quiet solitude, all can become conduits for divine love, wisdom, and inspiration. And as we carry this consciousness forward, moment to moment, day to day, we cultivate a life of integrity, of alignment, and of profound spiritual resonance. Inviting God's presence is ultimately an act of partnership. It is an acknowledgement that we are co-creators with the divine, that our intentions, choices, and actions have power, and that when we align them with a higher purpose, we participate in the unfolding of a life that is abundant, meaningful, and deeply fulfilling. It is a reminder that while the world may move in chaos, uncertainty, and turbulence, we have access to a stillness, a clarity, and a guidance that is unwavering and ever present. And this guidance does not merely instruct, it transforms. It molds our character, shapes our perceptions, elevates our speech, and directs our deeds in ways that we might not have imagined, but that ultimately serve the highest good. To invite God's presence into every thought, word, and action is to live consciously, intentionally, and spiritually awake. It is to carry the awareness that nothing in our lives is insignificant, that each moment is an opportunity for connection, alignment, and expression of divine love. It is to step into life fully, recognizing that our lives are not random but imbued with purpose, that our decisions matter, and that when guided by God's presence, every choice has the potential to ripple outward, affecting not only our own journey, but the lives of countless others in ways subtle and profound. This practice requires dedication, reflection, and mindfulness. It asks us to examine our motives, to discern our intentions, and to be courageous in realigning whenever we stray. It calls upon us to cultivate inner stillness amidst the clamor of life, to seek wisdom in moments of confusion, and to remain receptive even when answers do not come immediately. And in cultivating this awareness, we discover a life marked not by chaos or confusion, but by clarity, purpose, and grace. We find that our thoughts, once scattered, now carry focus and intentionality. Our words, once careless, now bear kindness and insight. Our actions, once impulsive, now reflect compassion, integrity, and divine guidance. And as this awareness deepens, it becomes a living testament to the power of inviting God's presence, demonstrating that life is most profoundly lived when it is consciously aligned with the sacred, when it is infused with intention, and when it is guided by the wisdom, love, and light of the divine. There is a sacred stillness in the morning, a gentle unfolding of light that speaks not only to the eyes but to the heart, a whisper of possibility that reminds us that each day is a gift, each sunrise a call to awaken to our higher selves, to our purpose, and to the quiet yet profound beauty of existence. To embrace morning as sacred is to recognize that the first moments of our day set the tone for everything that follows. That in the quiet hours before the world demands our attention, we are given an invitation to reflect, to honor, and to prepare our hearts and minds for the life that lies ahead. Reflection in the morning is not merely an act of thinking. It is an engagement of the soul, a conversation with the divine, a moment of stillness in which we assess not only the tasks before us, but the state of our hearts, the clarity of our intentions, and the alignment of our actions with the values we hold most dearly. In these early hours, when the world is hushed and the noise of daily life has not yet reached its crescendo, there is a sacred opportunity to gaze inward, to consider the lessons of the past, to honor the challenges and triumphs we have encountered, and to acknowledge the growth, resilience, and wisdom that have brought us to this moment. Gratitude, too, flows naturally from this practice of morning reflection. To be grateful in the morning is to recognize the abundance that exists even before the day begins, to celebrate the breath that fills our lungs, the beating of our hearts, the awareness that we are alive, that we are present, and that we are capable of choosing how we meet this new day. Gratitude in the morning is not a fleeting sentiment. It is a deliberate orientation of the heart, a recognition of the interconnectedness of life, a humble acknowledgement that every blessing, every lesson, every moment of joy or sorrow has contributed to the tapestry of who we are. And as we cultivate this gratitude, we begin to notice subtle yet profound shifts within ourselves. The burdens of worry, fear, and doubt, which may have lingered overnight, begin to lift, replaced by a sense of lightness, clarity, and possibility. The mind, once scattered or preoccupied with the residue of yesterday, becomes centered, attuned, and ready to receive guidance, insight, and inspiration. Purpose, too, emerges in these sacred morning hours. It is in the stillness of the dawn that our deepest intentions are clarified, that our values are reaffirmed, and that the direction of our actions for the day can be chosen consciously, deliberately, and with meaning. To approach the morning as sacred is to see it as a moment of empowerment, a time when we may shape the trajectory of our lives with thoughtfulness, courage, and integrity. When we begin our day with reflection, gratitude, and purpose, we engage not only with the external world, but with the internal landscape of our spirit, We acknowledge the infinite possibilities that lie before us. We honor the strengths and capacities we carry, and we prepare ourselves to act in ways that are aligned with both our highest selves and the guidance of God. This practice transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary, the routine into the remarkable, and the simple act of rising into a ritual of sacred awareness. Mornings are a canvas upon which we may paint the colors of intention, faith, and creativity. They are a space in which we may cultivate patience, nurture compassion, and summon the courage to face challenges with grace and dignity. To embrace morning is to recognize that how we begin our day shapes the quality of our interactions, the decisions we make, and the impact we have upon the lives of others. And in this recognition, there is both power and responsibility, for we are called to steward these hours wisely, to honor their potential, and to allow them to nourish not only our own spirits, but the spirits of those around us. Reflection in the morning provides clarity. It allows us to examine the lingering thoughts and emotions from yesterday, to acknowledge what we carry forward, and to release what no longer serves our growth or our well-being. In this reflective space, we may discern patterns, identify areas for growth, and recognize the gifts and opportunities that await us in the unfolding day. There is a deep wisdom in beginning the day with such intentionality, a wisdom that reminds us that our lives are not random, that our choices matter, and that every moment offers an opportunity to align with the divine, to act with integrity, and to cultivate joy, peace, and love in all that we do. Gratitude, cultivated in these early hours, is a powerful force. It shifts the focus from lack to abundance, from worry to trust, from fear to faith. When we express gratitude in the morning, we create a fertile soil within ourselves where hope, inspiration, and resilience may grow. Gratitude allows us to recognize the gifts of life, to honor the people who support and love us, and to appreciate the intricate beauty of creation that surrounds us. It reminds us that even in moments of struggle or challenge, there is much to be thankful for, and it transforms the way we perceive and interact with the world. Purpose, awakened in the sacred morning, is the guiding compass for our actions, thoughts, and words. It is the awareness that life is not simply to be lived passively, but to be engaged fully, intentionally, and consciously. To live with purpose is to recognize the unique gifts we possess, to discern the paths we are called to walk, and to dedicate our energies toward the fulfillment of our highest potential and the betterment of the world around us. And when reflection, gratitude, and purpose converge in the morning, we step into the day with a sense of empowerment, with clarity of vision, and with the quiet confidence that our lives are aligned with something greater than ourselves. Mornings, when embraced as sacred, also offer a sanctuary of stillness. They provide an opportunity to center ourselves before the demands, distractions, and challenges of the day arise. In these moments of quiet, we may connect deeply with our inner selves, with the presence of God, and with the clarity that arises when the mind and heart are unhurried. This stillness is a precious gift, a grounding force that strengthens our resilience, sharpens our focus, and deepens our awareness of the beauty and potential inherent in each moment. The sacredness of morning also lies in its invitation to renewal. Each sunrise marks the beginning of a new cycle, a fresh opportunity to release what has passed, to embrace what is present, and to step forward with intention, courage, and faith. By engaging with the morning in this way, we cultivate habits that nourish the soul, shape character, and empower us to navigate life with grace, strength, and purpose. Embracing morning as sacred encourages mindfulness. It invites us to notice the subtle details of life, the soft hues of the dawn, the gentle rustling of leaves, the song of a bird, the quiet presence of loved ones, and to allow these details to inform, inspire, and uplift us. In this attentiveness, life becomes rich with meaning, beauty, and connection, and we come to understand that the sacred is not only found in extraordinary moments, but in the simple, ordinary experiences that surround us every day. Reflection, gratitude, and purpose are not isolated practices. They are intertwined, mutually reinforcing, and profoundly transformative. Reflection informs gratitude, for as we look inward and assess our lives, we recognize the gifts and blessings we have received. Gratitude enhances purpose, for recognizing what we have and what we value clarifies the direction we are called to pursue. Purpose guides reflection, for living intentionally encourages us to evaluate our choices and to align our actions with our highest ideals. And together, these practices create a morning ritual that nourishes the soul, strengthens the spirit, and prepares the heart to engage fully with the world. To embrace morning as sacred is also to cultivate presence. It is to awaken not only physically but spiritually, to step into the day aware of our intentions, mindful of our impact, and attuned to the guidance of the divine. It is a practice of awakening to the interconnectedness of life, the beauty that surrounds us, and the possibilities that each moment holds. And as we engage with the morning in this way, we discover a quiet power within ourselves, a power that is rooted in awareness, anchored in gratitude, and guided by purpose, that enables us to face challenges with resilience, to seize opportunities with courage, and to approach life with a sense of joy, wonder, and reverence. Embracing morning as sacred is a practice of alignment. It aligns our inner world with our outer actions, our thoughts with our intentions, and our hearts with our higher purpose. It transforms the ordinary routine of rising and beginning the day into a deliberate, conscious, and deeply spiritual act. And in this alignment, we find clarity, strength, and inspiration, recognizing that each morning offers an opportunity to shape not only the day ahead, but the trajectory of our lives in ways that are meaningful, purposeful, and deeply fulfilling. As we continue this practice, moment by moment, breath by breath, choice by choice, we cultivate a life in which reflection, gratitude, and purpose are not confined to the morning alone, but ripple outward into every interaction, decision, and action. We discover that by embracing the sacredness of the morning, we are better able to navigate the complexities of life, to nurture our relationships, to fulfill our responsibilities, and to contribute meaningfully to the world around us, all while remaining grounded, centered, and attuned to the presence of God and the wisdom of our own hearts.